biggest finishes in the NASCAR Cup Series occurred here, and lots to talk about because the championship was decided with a non-playoff driver winning, your champion finishing fourth, and what looked like to be the champion with 3 laps to go, finishing sixth, missing out. Welcome to Grid Encore, Joe San Diego, along with Matthew Bro. We have Tanner Smith, editor of the Pit Box Press, and joining us tonight, Ben Schneider from Grid Encore, lastcar.info. Link in the video description to everyone's platform. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, and our newest member, Crystal. Link in the video description to invest in us so we continue covering more motorsports right here. And YouTube Super Chat, Buy Me a Coffee, also welcome. We'll add your name to the leaderboard and follow us across Grid Network TV, gridnetworktv.com. No, Matthew will be getting his article up tonight, and across social media, the grid ranking will be posted later tonight. We don't have to update the stands, but not much change since it was only NASCAR. One thing I could tell you, Denny Hamlin is in the top 10 for the grid ranking, but when it comes to this year, the final race, what is likely to be the final year of this format, it came down to overtime, and Ryan Blaney took the win, but the drum behind him, Kyle Larson, third place, cross the line ahead of Denny Hamlin in sixth place. So Kyle Larson became a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and celebrated his second championship with Hendrick Motorsports in that number 5 team. But the big heartbreak, the one thing that most people are talking about, and we're seeing it across social media, Denny Hamlin, as I mentioned, sixth place, led most of the race, over 200 of the 312 scheduled distance. He was leading by over 3 seconds ahead of Byron and Blaney with 3 laps to go. But then Byron blows the tire. We'll talk more about tire problems throughout this race weekend because at the end, that was the theme of the race, theme of the day. And this really changed the outcome because this allowed everyone to come in, do pit stops. Larson's pit crew, 2 tires on the last pit stop. Denny Hamlin's crew went with 4 tires. They lost positions to everyone that took 2. That included the Penske Fords, Larson, Chase Elliott. And at the end of the day, could not overcome the 5 cars between him and Kyle Larson to get that championship. And Tanner, we'll start with you. How does this championship go down in the history book?
With Kyle Larson's name on top of it and on the trophy, I guess. I'll expand upon that, I suppose. Y'all, I am so sorry. Let me apologize for a number of things. So yesterday, I started my day with a C4 energy drink, and I left the Red Bull in the fridge, and, you know, maybe karmically, cosmically, something, Jesse Love ended up with the title instead of the guy that drives for Red Bull, and Connor Zilic, who definitely deserved that title. So apologies to you, Connor. And today, I called it on our pre-race show. I said that we're probably going to finally get that stupid, asinine, overtime finale finish that NASCAR has been begging for ever since they started this stupid format 12 seasons ago. And my, what a 12 seasons it's been. I'm deflated after all of this season, which has just been meandering and exhausting for the most part. I covered on this program 34 weeks this year, just for the points races. Also did some of the post races and pre-races for the All-Star and Clash event coming into the year. And I remarked at several points throughout the season that there wasn't really a clear front runner, and that really should have been interesting. But in this format, it just isn't. We should have been witnessing a tremendously tight points battle that would have been decided by the final caution of the race as well. that, would have been like a massive culmination of events, but this just felt like a completely random winner in a completely random race. And I really hate to say that because Kyle Larson is one of the best drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series. In fact, probably one of the best in the world. And you could even tell the look on his face after he got out of the car and he was looking at his kids. He wasn't even smiling. And frankly, I can't really say I blame him. There's just nothing to celebrate. You haven't won a race since May. Since I believe May 11th, Mother's Day. You haven't won a race since Mother's Day in a format that encourages and allegedly entices winning above all else. And Kyle Larson skated by with a top 5 because, as has been tradition, a team that is not fielded by Hendrick Motorsports gets hoodwinked by a team that is Hendrick Motorsports taking 2 tires on the final late race pit stop. It is sadly a formula we have seen play out time and time before, and teams still keep falling into this trap. And Denny Hamlin and Chris Gale were not privy to these tactics somehow, even though the data historically lines up with them doing exactly this in these situations. And all you can do is just shake your head and laugh, because if you don't, then you'll just be in a world of numbness and pain. But as far as how this championship will go down in the history books, it'll have Kyle Larson's name at the top. It'll have Kyle Larson's name in the history book and on the trophy. But I think we all know what we watched today through 310 laps, and Kyle Larson just was not the deserving champion of this race or of this season based on the format presented to us. But unfortunately, because NASCAR loves nothing more than to gimmick everything up, we have a completely different guy who was not competitive at all at any point today winning the title instead.
Guys, I'm going to have to make notes for tomorrow's show. Tanner, I think you're going to be there. Looking forward to that. We got 2 shows left. Joe, I'm sorry, you might have to fire me tomorrow morning because I have no game plan. I don't know what's about to come out of my mouth. I felt every possible emotion over the last... Keep everybody on the screen here. I want to be talking to people when I'm saying this. I have felt every possible emotion over the last however many hours it's been, 1 or 2 hours, hour and a half. Time has stood still. Time has accelerated. We as NASCAR fans deserve better than this. I have felt embarrassed before as a NASCAR fan. I've felt jaded. I've felt disappointed. I've been mad. I have never in the 19 years that I've been watching this sport felt ashamed to be a NASCAR fan until tonight. You know, guys, we had 2 drivers in the series that I normally cover on my show. They won 10 races. They led every statistical category. They broke records. We were saying leading up to this weekend, man, imagine the meltdown on Twitter if either of these guys don't win the championship. Who had the biggest meltdown being after the Cup race on their bingo card? Because that's what's happened here. And they tried their damnedest to rip the trophy out of Corey Haim's hands on Friday night. I don't even remember who it was. It was one of Ankram's teammates, I think, had a tire go down. Probably should have come into the pits 3 laps before he did because he knew that there was a problem. Stayed on the track, brought out a yellow, completely reshuffled the race, and by the grace of God, I don't know how he managed to do it. Maybe he laid back a little bit too much on the restart. I don't know, Tanner, I know you were saying he's got plausible deniability because Lane Riggs was doing the same thing. And it did cost Lane Riggs an owner's championship, by the way. Don't forget about that. Lane Riggs was going to win that race. So the 34 team, I think, has every right to be mad about how that played out too. But by the grace of God, thank goodness Corey Haim won that title. And then last night, Connor Zilic, man, got passed late by Jesse Love, loses the drivers, got passed late by Eric Almirola, loses the owners. I mean, imagine if he'd gotten passed by Carson Kvapil. I don't even think he would have gotten Rookie of the Year, right? That was the one thing. Oh, at least you got Rookie of the Year. At least you won that. At least you get some sort of accolade for your historic season, and we can vote you the people's champion, I guess. But, man,
Jesse Love just shined the most when the lights were the brightest. When it mattered the most, Richard Childress Racing took the Drivers' Championship with Jesse Love. Junior Motorsports, 75% chance of a title. They broke records all season. Their organization doesn't even come away with the owner's title. And you thought the meltdown was bad last night. Denny Hamlin had this race won. He was 3+ seconds ahead. And because of issues that we had seen all day, tires going down, unpredictability, somebody at Goodyear needs to be fired or investigated or whatnot. I understand. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think this was a brand new tire compound that they were trying out for the first time. Why would we do that on a one-race winner-take-all championship finale? God only knows.
Thank you.
We did. And man, the same exact thing that happened in the truck race happens tonight. We re-rack them. Drivers stay out. Drivers take 2 tires. Drivers take 4 tires. Your entire season comes down to this. And if I pull this stupid thing out of my hands and I see one more tweet about the 2007 Patriots, I am going to lose my ever-loving mind. Because show me the part of that Super Bowl where a Chargers defensive tackle ran out onto the field and sacked either Tom Brady or Eli Manning and completely changed the outcome of that championship. You cannot compare stick and ball sports to a sport where everybody is on the track at once. Everybody is running their own race. Everything under the sun is liable to happen, whether it's in your control or not. And you cannot tell me that it is an apples to apples comparison. You can't even make an apples to oranges comparison. It's apples and chocolate fudge Pop-Tarts. That's what you're doing when you try to compare NASCAR and auto racing to stick and ball sports. And I am so tired of the argument that 18 wins and 1 giant loss. Man, I'm sick of it. I've had it. It makes no sense. You cannot make the comparison and sound like you're making any sort of logical or sensible or rational argument. I don't even, like I said, I am sure I've missed things. I do not want to completely monopolize the night. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here on the wrap-up show. I'm going to let Matthew go here in just a moment. But between everything that we saw, the playoff format, overtime, goodness knows, I love overtime, right? One of my other favorite things about this sport. Playoff format, overtime, the tire issues, 30 other cars out there on the track doing what they do, running their own races, trying to maximize their own efforts. Congratulations to Ryan Blaney on the win. Nobody seems to care about that. You might as well spin a roulette wheel and determine your champion that way. I mean, it really wouldn't be that different. It really wouldn't be that different. And people are going to say, well, if you tally up the full season points, Kyle Larson would have won the championship anyway, so the best driver won. You guys got what you wanted. Man, screw all of that right now. I don't even care. Denny, this you have said for months, this is the way it is. This is the format we have. And under the format we have, there is no conceivable reason for Denny Hamlin to not be the champion of 2025. And yet he is not. Go ahead, Matthew.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's silly. And I think it's valid to say, yeah, Kyle Larson would have won the title if it was full season. But at the same time, he wouldn't have won it if William Byron doesn't blow a tire running third with 3 laps to go. And at the same time, again, it's not a knock on anyone. It's a knock on the system that creates stupid stuff like this, where if you want to reward, if you had the full season point system and Kyle Larson goes out and finishes third and wins, we're not having the conversation. We're going to say, well, Kyle Larson did what he needed to do. He was arguably the best driver all year, and he did it. But the way the system is, it rewards whoever does well in the final race. Denny Hamlin comes out, everything going on in Denny Hamlin's life, his father's illness, his just family in general, new kid, trying to win a championship, most wins in the history of this sport without a championship. He has 60, the next closest is 50. He has 6 wins this season. He goes out and does everything impossible that he can do. Leads 208 laps, which I believe is the most ever led in a championship race, at least in a playoff format like this. He is top 3 in both stages. He set a blistering fastest lap. And actually, if for some reason NASCAR loves to not include stage points for the championship 4, they're scored differently in the final race. if they weren't scored differently and stage points mattered like they do for the first 35 races of the year, Denny Hamlin outscored Kyle Larson today. So no matter what way you put it, whether the overtime rule, you could say screw Denny Hamlin, the caution coming out, anything that could have gone Denny Hamlin's way today just didn't at the end of the day. And it's all because of how NASCAR continues to change rules that do not help the sport out, that continue to make it have a stain on the sport. And it's just you're heartbroken for Denny Hamlin, because whether you love Denny Hamlin, whether you hate Denny Hamlin, you want him to retire, whatever, to see this get taken away from him when he did everything he possibly could have done to win this race, to win the championship, and it just gets taken away over silly circumstances like a caution coming out for somebody who blows a tire with 3 laps to go. It's just so obnoxious. But that's the way it is. That it is. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. I just hope that by the time we have another conversation about this, they completely change the format. Whether it's they keep the playoffs with the 3-3-4, whether they get rid of it, who cares? It's not player.
No.
It's just
I am done with playoffs. This needs to be the end of it. It's 10 race chase, full season or nothing.
Well, I guess I consider the chase as a playoff in that sense, right? The 10 race, but it's the principle of the idea that
I'm done compromising, and I said this at the end of Martinsville last week, or I don't even remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. There's so much stupid stuff that happens, and thank you for the shirt, by the way. You can go to backstreetmerch.com. It's not a shameless plug because I'm plugging it on behalf of my co-host here, but man, I've always said, you know what? At this point, if we can get a 10 race sample size, if we can get the 10 race chase, then so be it. It's anything but the 1 race format. But I'm done. I'm done compromising. You once you start moving, and they're doing this with the rumors of the 3-3-4, you start moving from 1 race to 4 race. You are admitting that you need a larger sample size to crown a legitimate fair champion. And then if you move back to 4 and people don't like that, maybe you go back to the 10 race chase. But if you're already trending that direction anyway, why not just take the largest sample size possible, the sample size that virtually every other major form of motorsports around the world uses to crown their champions, the format that NASCAR used for its first 55 seasons, even longer than that in Xfinity and Trucks, still uses in ARCA, a series they own, by the way. Congratulations, Trevor Huddleston. Why not just take the full 36 races? It doesn't have to be Latford. It doesn't. One of the places where the Latford system erred was it did not give the winner enough of an advantage over second relative to the rest of the field. I understand that. It does not have to be Latford. It does have to be a 36 race championship. And that is something that I am no longer willing to compromise on, because every time up until this year, maybe this is the final straw that breaks the camel's back. I don't know. But up until this year, all I've heard from talking heads on Sirius XM NASCAR radio, from people who defend this system to the death until they're blue in the face, is, oh, well, you just want to go back to the old days and we can't take the sport backwards. We have to move the sport forwards, or, you know, this is just how it is in every other sport. And if the 2007 Patriots lose the Super Bowl, you're out of arguments. You're out of defenses for this system. It has to go. And the only answer, the only way that we get back to having champions that are undisputed, that everybody accepts with legitimacy, is a full 36. I'm sorry, but I'm done compromising.
I can add something quickly. And one thing I really enjoy, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the ASA Star National Tour. I really like their point system. I say take a look at it. It's a little different. They have stages as well, but just if they're going to change anything at the end of the day. But it sucks. I know Ben mentioned, I know Tanner did too. Everyone's like, oh, well, the lights didn't shine. They didn't, whatever the saying is. I am so lost at this moment. When the lights shine the brightest, I am losing it. When the lights shine the brightest, they didn't do well. I don't know. The lights were this bright. Denny Hamlin did everything possible. It's not his legitimate fault that Goodyear gave William Byron a bad left tire or bad right side tire. That cost Denny Hamlin the championship. That's how this NASCAR season has went. It's been a long, grueling week. I'm so happy this is my final grid ranking story for the season. I am tired. I know all of you guys are tired, whether it's lastcar.com, whether it's Pitbox. I know we're all tired. We're finally happy it's over. But just to see it end like that, it was such a fun year, and to see it end like that, you're just heartbroken for Hamlin. But yeah, that's what I got for that. I think you guys all hit everything else on the nail on the head. So.
I'm just going to say, I think, similar to what you said, Tanner, the record book will show Kyle Larson became a 2-time champion. But what everyone's going to talk about when they remember this race is Kyle Larson put himself in the right spot because of his crew chief, Cliff Daniels, to come home third place to get the championship. And really, everyone felt that it was 3 laps to go. Denny Hamlin was going to be that champion. I think that's going to be a point where a lot of people are going to be talking about, yeah, Kyle Larson, great driver, great team, but this was not how it should have gone. Because at the end of the day, 3 wins. Back in Kansas, last time he got this win. Nothing much to show, but right place, right time, and give credit to what Cliff Daniels did. 2 tires, allow Larson go on the high side. He got it done. But I think if the sting of yesterday, everyone's seen what Connor Zilish went through. I know, Ben, you're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. Today, 3 laps away from that lead. All the pre-race talk about it. They put in a lot to make this not just random drivers. You knew the characters. You knew the stars involved. The storylines. And at the end of the day, what could have been a pretty interesting storyline. All the positives of if Danny had gotten it done, but then, of course, the lawsuit all got flipped because of overtime and the last round of pit stops, which really changed up a lot of the action when it came to the end results, which will display. We'll also display comments in the chat room. Encourage everyone, share your comments with us on the air, from Amber, Boo at the playoff format. We got Dakota, I called it. Day in the life. Imagine if IndyCar brings a playoff format in 2026. I think this is probably something IndyCar's probably looking at as like, maybe we don't want this. Amber, preach. I think this was when you were going, as well as Kathy Dunn. I agree with you. Thomas, hello, Josh. We know a lot of folks coming from Joshua Birch's Motorsports stream. Of course, his watch along. So we welcome all of those. Love to catch your next stream. Can you add me on Discord? We don't have a Discord, but maybe we will. Definitely just subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Don't miss any of our programs and ring the bell icon. Hamlin's team blew it. It was a bad decision. They deserved to lose. I think that was referring to the pit stop.
No one in their right mind would have thought that Kyle Larson with 50-plus lap left side tires would have had that much grip. Come on, get real. No offense.
Something else I know when it comes to, I mean, everyone's going to be talking about the crew chief, and I know we will in a little bit, but at the end of the day, this championship, everyone knew the rules beginning of the season, how it's going to work. I mean, we talked about in the pre-race show, if Byron had gotten this championship, the irony that the 3 drivers of the Craftsman Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and potentially him win the first race, getting it done the last race. Of course, that didn't work out. But now we got this mess. I think the Connor Zilish mess got things warmed up. This just went over because of how it's so drastically. And I would say besides the playoff format, I think people need to reconsider, particularly NASCAR, the overtime rule. Did they really? I mean, if this was I know people will say, well, NASCAR might be a little relieved. It's not Denny Hamlin. Okay. But what if it was a William Byron and another random car blew a tire and now they're out of the championship? Ben, is this the championship moment that people will use as an example of why the playoffs need changing?
I think so. And it's just, again, I'm not a legal expert by any means. I've tried to avoid burying my head in all the lawsuit news that's been going on. By the way, Matthew, this is the one flaw in your design. The shirt cuts off a little bit. I think we need it out up on the top here. This does say keep playoffs out of racing, by the way, just so that everybody can be made aware here. This is not an endorsement of any sort of postseason for auto racing, but I had to bring the shirt out tonight. Thank you again, Matthew. Yes, this I think is finally going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for anybody that was on the fence. Of course, you're always going to have the people
that say this is just like stick and ball sports, say we need the championship to go down in the last race. I mean, I was arguing with some bot on Twitter today. I'm sorry to use that term, but that's what you guys call me. So I'm going to give it right back to you guys. I don't even care at this point. You're clearly not here for an actual conversation or actual debate. Telling me about how there's a boring championship battle going on in F1 right now, and it has a full season format. And I try to tell him that it's only 1 point right now between the two McLaren teammates, and Max Verstappen has the best betting odds for whatever the hell that means to still win the championship. And he's like, no, only one team is still involved. Like these people clearly are not here to have an actual legitimate and honest and open conversation about this subject here. But this, to me, I think because of the way that Denny lost it, and because of what's going on behind the scenes in the sport right now, and because of the way that tires were blowing out today, and I got to be honest with you guys, I've been so jaded with this format. I just don't care so much about what happens. I know it sounds weird probably to say I don't care after the rant that I went on to start this show, but I didn't care enough to tune in until the last 25 laps because I was just like, something stupid's probably going to happen. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong again, please do. But from what I understand, there were tire blowouts going on all day, and we didn't know which of these caused a caution or warranted a caution or didn't warrant a caution. I'm not putting the tinfoil hat on here myself, but I think some people might be at this point. What if Byron was leading the race and Denny Hamlin was the one that lost the tire? Would they have still thrown the caution, given what's going on behind the scenes right now? Again, I'm not asking that question myself, but I think the door is left open for the possibility for somebody to look at what's going on in the sport right now and say, okay, that seems a little suspicious, right? There is so much wrong with what we saw tonight that I think anybody who was still on the fence, or anybody who was still just even apathetic, that was just like, well, it is what it is, and I'm a race fan, and I'll ride or die with the sport no matter what. I struggle to understand how you're going to look at what happened the last two nights in particular, and what very nearly happened on night one with Corey Haim, could have happened easily all three nights, and look at this system and say, this is fine. This is great. Don't you just love one race winner take all formats here? I mean, man, if you're still feeling that way, I simply do not understand you. And to answer the question, Joe, yes, this is going to be the all-time example. It took 12 years, maybe only 9 years, because it kind of happened in 16 again. I mean, that's the only thing that compares, by the way. And wouldn't it be something if Denny just pulls a Carl Edwards and says, screw it, I'm out of here? I mean, who knows what's going to happen again with the lawsuit in the background is presenting its own challenges as well. But I'm over it. I'm completely over it. I have, like I've said, I felt every possible emotion these last couple of hours here, including happiness, because the silver lining to this is the people that were on the fence have woken up. This is absolute insanity. And I hope that we look back decades down the road and think, how in the world did we let this happen for 12 years? 12 years of this format. May it never happen again.
I mean, yeah, that's we just gotta hope that this doesn't happen. I think if Haim lost it, I think I probably couldn't even be on the show, to be honest with you. I think I would have been just completely just gone these last couple of days, because it would have had all three. Well, it's hard because obviously, again, Larson would have had the same, but like Haim was 5 races ahead of everyone, and Zilich was like 2 races ahead of everyone in their respective series, and only one of them won the title. But yeah, this should kill the playoff system. I think that's the one thing that people who don't like the playoff system should be happy about, is that this should kill it. And if it doesn't kill it, it's going to be really annoying, especially with the lawsuit, everything going on. Now that's all what we got to wait on. Now, if Denny Hamlin didn't win the championship, but does he win this lawsuit against NASCAR? What do we see out of NASCAR next year? Because it is not going to be the same of what we saw this year, regardless of what happens, whether they win or lose. If NASCAR wins this lawsuit, we might not have 2 organizations, which the guy who lost the championship in the silliest way co-owns one of those organizations. So, but if they do win, there's going to be a lot of changes, I think, coming. So I don't know if you hope for that, you don't hope for it, however you feel, but that's really the next step of this. But I think the moment they finally started listening to people about this, I think started at the start of these playoffs. And now I just really hope they listened. I know there's going to be someone, I'm not going to name specific people because I don't know, but there's going to be people that are like, well, Kyle Larson would have won the championship anyway. Yeah, okay, but still, not the point. It can coexist that Larson is a deserving champion in a full format, but because of this format that we are in, Denny Hamlin should have won the championship. Those two things I feel like can coexist. But we shouldn't even have this conversation right now. And if this was a full season thing and Kyle Larson won the championship on a strategy like this with Byron blowing his tire, we would be calm about it, I feel. And we would understand because that's the way the game is played. It's not the player, it's the game. And the game needs to be changed right now. I think after inspection, they should have another State of the Union address in State of the whatever the hell they call it. And just be like, okay, we're changing this now. That's what they should do. Because don't you feel gutted too? I mean, Denny Hamlin said, in this moment, I never want to race a car again. My fun meter is pegged. You know how insane that is? How somebody who's dedicated their entire livelihood to doing this, and just every single time it seems like he can get it done, he doesn't get it done. And a lot of it's really not on him. A lot of it is this format. And I think if it changes, it could benefit him. As he was incredible all year. He even missed a race, and I think he still would have been in the top, I guess, 5 or 6 in the standings. With different format. You drive differently based on the format. He wouldn't have completely rode around at Talladega if he had not won Vegas. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's all different. It's all theoretical and I guess hypotheticals at the end of the day. But yeah, this is the prime year to say the playoffs now, keep them out of racing. And I feel so bad if you're tuning in from Australia, New Zealand, if Brock Feeney does not win the title this year in Supercars, you guys are going to understand exactly how this side of the world feels about NASCAR in the playoffs. And I think if IndyCar does it, Fox should just never have a say in anything. But before I throw it over to Tanner, I hope he can read that because I think my contacts are losing. So I'll let when he takes over here. But yeah, also this is my plug, Backstretch merch. Thank you, Ben, for showing off the shirt. It is a bestseller. I will edit the design because I know it is a little big. We want to get more to the point that we got to keep playoffs out of racing.
The design's fine. It's only because of the way the screen is cropping off my top half here, but that's all good.
But yeah, hey, Backstretch
nonetheless.
Right there. That is a shameless plug on my end. I apologize to Joe.
Yeah, go full screen on Tanner. I want to read this sign.
Yeah, throw it over to Tanner.
It says "Boo NASCAR" and in parentheses, "This sucks."
Hello, Woody Page.
Exactly. That's exactly who I was trying to channel in this moment because I am about to go on an absolute tear. So, if this isn't what pushes you over the edge and wanting this format to go, I genuinely don't know what will. The thing is with Joey Logano's championships is you can't really be mad at him. You really want to be, but you can't because he actually won the races. He actually put the effort in and crossed the finish line first in those events. So he won the championships by the merits of the system. Kyle Larson has not won a race since May 11th. He pointed his way through all 3 rounds of the postseason and lollygagged his way through this race and just so happened to be ahead of all of the other championship contenders at the time the checkered flag fell in overtime, which let's just go on that as a concept in this stupid sport. If you want to do overtime in a sport, it has to make sense. In NASCAR, it doesn't. Why does somebody's entire advantage get eliminated just so we can run some extra laps? No takers on that? No, I didn't think so. Because it doesn't make sense. At the end of a football game, you're not up 38-3, and then the other team just gets awarded 35 more points so you can play 10 extra minutes. That's not what happens. Sorry I'm raising my voice, but I am just... it literally splits my mind that we have gone this long with not only the chase or any form of a playoff, but overtime as a concept in the NASCAR Cup Series or any other motorsport in the world is patently obnoxious and completely redundant. Like, why is it that we're having a race come down to who can put on the most or least amount of tires at the end of the race? That's what it came down to. Not only that, like, again, if you want to do it on the merits of a true overtime, then give Denny Hamlin a 3-second advantage to start the last 2 laps, which is what he should have had. Oh my God. Like, there are so many problems with this sport and the way the France family continues to try to run this dang thing. And these gimmicks are exactly at the heart of why this sport has lost so many fans over the years. Like, you cannot keep playing in people's faces like this and expect them to stick around. This has seriously challenged my ability to cover this sport, this finish. I already had to watch one of my favorite drivers when I was still a fan lose after winning 9 races in a season. He didn't even get a chance to race at Phoenix, and I had to be in attendance for that. So, yeah, I've seen this format completely shatter the, like, veil of reality at so many different opportunities. And this is just the latest and possibly worst example, because did Kyle Larson, where did he even finish? Does anybody have a firm answer on that? Where did he finish?
Right? 3rd or 4th, maybe?
4th? 3rd? What does it matter? Like, he didn't win. I wanted this format to just die on the merits. I wanted it to die a natural death with what was probably the most natural choice for this year's champion. And with 4 laps to go, it looked like we were going to finally get that. And then, as I said before, Hendrick Motorsports car took 2 tires, and that was all it took. It's a farce. And it's absolutely, completely intellectually dishonest to call it anything else. It is a farce and a heist. And frankly, this is just an absolute disgrace to sport as a whole and motorsport in total. This is absolutely one of the worst miscarriages of justice I have seen in auto racing. It is tantamount to the 2021 Abu Dhabi finale. It is that bad.
Worse. I think it's worse.
Yes, it's worse because it was the culmination of all of these structural things. At least with F1 in that finale, it had more to do with Michael Massey going on a rogue agent move and basically running overtime while there were still lapped cars trying to get their lap back, which was completely against everything race organization and the rule book dictated. But with NASCAR, this was all in the rule book for 20 years. And this is the first time that it's ever really blown up in their face. And frankly, I don't think anything is going to satisfy the fan base from this. Like, even if, God forbid, Larson loses out in tech or something, like, and Hamlin still gets awarded the title anyway, no one's gonna take that seriously. Because it shouldn't be. Because nothing about this sport needs to be taken seriously if this is how they're going to conduct themselves. This is ridiculous. Ugh. If it isn't the prime example for why this format and any sort of postseason format needs to die, then there's nothing that's going to convince you. Period.
I want to bring up, Joe, if you can, this Facebook comment that just came in, because this is important. This is I don't know if this guy here is just trolling or what, but I mean, first of all, I don't think that's how you spell whining, so you got that going for you. But this is toxic positivity. Because I'm seeing on Twitter too, there are people saying, we just got a thrilling finish, sprint to the finish, green, white, checkered overtime. You saw it in a truck race Friday night. You got your rightful champion, right? You got your great finish, and just we all love this sport. Why can't we all just be happy? Why do we have to start whining?
Loving a sport does not mean you turn a blind eye to its faults. And the faults of this system have been on full display in all 3 races this weekend. And if you don't call that out as a pundit, I hesitate to call myself a journalist because I'm only on the grounds once or twice a year. But as an analyst, if you do not call out the faults of the sport that you're covering, you're not being honest with your audience, and your integrity suffers for it. So with all due respect, Steve, we are not going to quit whining. We're going to continue to talk about this. I'm going to continue to talk about this on my show tomorrow. Tanner's coming on Encore. He's going to continue to talk about this tomorrow. Brandon Crossland's going to come on Encore and talk about this tomorrow. And we're going to continue the conversation well into the offseason and not stop fighting for what we believe will put this sport on a trajectory to success. And that is in no possible way, shape, or form this system that we have had for the last 12 years, despite what our now Commissioner Steve Phelps said 2 years ago. I want to play you this clip from the State of the Sport in 2023. Listen to what Steve Phelps tried to say before the Phoenix race 2 years ago in light of everything that's happened this weekend. Take a listen to this.
And I've heard some things that were people was like, hey, listen, this is gimmicky and what. It's not. It's an incredible playoff system that rewards the best drivers in our sport.
I think the best driver in the sport today was pretty obvious. I don't think he got rewarded for it. I'll just leave it at that.
When it comes to this format, this championship format, I get it. And this is something Brian France introduced because he so wanted that Game 7 moment. He said that when he introduced the chase back in 2004 even. And then there have been changes and all that. They want to bring extra excitement, it's particularly in a year where you might have a Matt Kenseth repeat of 2003 when he won the championship with 1 race and Ryan Newman came 3rd in the points with 8 wins. This is just not the way it works in motorsports. I just feel personally when it comes to the Championship 4, it has failed to reach the hype of a natural championship where you have Tony Stewart, Carl Edwards going for the championship. When you had Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson coming in Homestead, all 3 of them with a shot at the championship. Is there excitement? Yeah. Is there people that come out? I mean, all of them saying in the press conference, there's more media here. Well, yeah, of course, it's awarding the championship. But we've seen it firsthand, particularly in IndyCar, when Palou gets that championship in Portland twice. A lot more media out there compared to, it's going to come down to the final race, and they don't show up. At the end of the day, I think you best said it. If this does make people change their minds, nothing will. They want this playoff format. They like what could be the chaos of it, the entertainment of it, the guarantee that there is no runaway. But this is just not the way it should be working when a system put in to say winning matters. And we get this. When we have something that we say you got to get those playoff points, but it doesn't count in this race. That, to me, has always felt a little bit of a gimmick because we know that would have just made it where you dominate the race like Denny Hamlin did. You know you had a buffer if you finish in the top 10 right behind Kyle Larson, and Kyle Larson really had to just get a win. It's just really, I think, this moment that up there surpassed, I think, 2016, what happened to Carl Edwards, that I think it's going to make folks in NASCAR really think, okay, we're overdue for something. What's it going to be? We'll find out. My opinion, I think a lot of folks, no playoff, but we know there's partners and everything's where we'll see how it all shapes up. In the chat room, Auto Rock and Race says Denny Hamlin pit crew really picked Carroll the title away. And I want to forget Supercar has a playoff format. We'll see how that's going to shape up. And then Larson didn't even lead a lap in the format that incentivized winning. And he even said that in his championship. We didn't even lead a lap. We had a tire go down, in fact. We had to use the wave around. You had to survive. Ben, you're muted.
Thank you. There's some sort of parade. I guess the format has woken up even non-race fans. They're just laying on their horns and making noise outside my apartment here. Everybody's going crazy about this. But But Joe, he did shine when the lights were the brightest. Kyle Larson did today, and that's why he was rewarded with a championship for it. Right? That's how the system works, and I guess we just need to accept that and stop whining.
Yeah, the third brightest diamond is always the brightest one, right? It's certainly brighter than the sixth, I guess, but like at that point,
Can't make this up.
We're still following just to see if any update from Tech. So you'll still see the results are showing.
it always takes longer with Cup.
Well, they got to tear the engine down Monday morning anyway, right? So
yeah. Matthew, you got something to add?
I was just gonna say, sent in our Slack chat. Brad Keselowski did a couple of things on Twitter. I assume one of you guys can pull it up. But one question he answered, he said, "Can someone other than Hendrick, Penske, or Gibbs win a Cup Series championship in this format?" And Brad Keselowski said, "Not realistically with the current OEM rules." So that kind of shows that the playoff system wants to create some sort of parity, but yet it's the same three teams that are fighting in the round of 8 every single year, and the championship for and the championship, just by the way the system is set up. So there needs to be an overhaul. That's all I just wanted to add to that. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting and telling story about there's drivers out there that want to change the system too. So.
And this is exactly what the lawsuit was for, is because the teams and, everybody that works on them want to have literally any say in any of this. So, I know that there have been settlement talks, but frankly, if I'm Denny Hamlin, I'm taking this personally and I'm saying we're going to go to court and you better defend.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been saying like the last couple of months, and again, I'm not a legal expert by any means, but it's become harder and harder for me to envision a way where I feel like, the teams, are kind of lacking substance in their arguments. I felt like as much as I don't personally want, the big monopoly, if you will, to win the lawsuit, I've kind of been thinking that that's where it's probably going to be headed. I don't know after today. This is just, who knows what's going to happen at this point. It's absolutely, I think speechless is the perfect word for it. I see the follow-up comment here. Why does leading laps all of a sudden mean you should win a championship? You just have to finish in front of the other three. Yeah, that's obviously that's what we got today. But the point is to, I think, bring up how absurd the system is that it let a driver who didn't lead a lap all day still come out on top because things were just shuffled at the end to the point where the guy that led over 200 laps went on a different strategy and only had 2 laps to make up for that because cars that were not even in the championship. I see you say you wish Brad won as well. I think that would have been a cool story. It's been a while since Brad's only won 1 race as an owner driver at RFK, but
he completely choked it in the last corner.
Yeah, who cares, right? Literally, who cares? I don't know how much time it took NBC to get to Ryan Blaney, but they were 20 minutes into the Peacock portion of the post-race show. That has to be a record for the time between the checkered flag and when the race winner was actually interviewed. So, again, I don't have anything against Brad Keselowski as a driver, but as right here, right now, today, he had absolutely nothing to do with the championship fight, and the decision that he and his team and his teammate Ryan Preece made to stay out at the end had a direct impact on the championship, and that is why you cannot compare what NASCAR does to the 2007 Patriots, period.
Yeah, it's something else. You got all the other teams. The variables that play, the irony that it was one of the championship contenders that sent this race into overtime with a blown tire. I know it just changes everything in the chat room. A gust of lightning. I wish Brad won, to be honest. That's why I think he was thinking just if there was going to be more overtime, more chaos, but that was not the case. Manu, nice job, Larson. Good work, Hendricks. In France, there are also NASCAR fans. Welcome. Be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell icon. Why do most spectators at the race dislike the number 11, Denny Hamlin? Is he unpopular in the U.S.? As a French fan, I would like to understand why. I would say part of it, and I would like to hear your guys' thoughts as well, too. We've seen how Kyle Busch got more popular leaving Toyota. I think that's one little factor. He's been known to egg on the fans with "I beat your favorite driver." Some of the stuff like that. I feel some of that has to do with it. Tanner, looks like you have a point as well.
It's really interesting with Denny Hamlin. I feel like for the first 12 years of his career, he was relatively neutral in the fan base. Like, I think most of his fans came from, the Virginia area that he's from, and anybody that was like a general like Joe Gibbs Racing fan. But like, he didn't really do anything too untoward one way or the other until obviously that Martinsville 2017 incident with Chase Elliott. At that point in his career, Denny Hamlin may have had like a slight positive, feeling amongst the fan base as a whole. Considering his run-in with Joey Logano at Auto Club in 2013, I think he caught a lot of sympathy for that particular incident. But after the Chase Elliott debacle that continued into Phoenix 2 weeks later, he's basically been on the crap list. There's definitely a different word for it. Amongst most of the NASCAR faithful. He's also had a number of run-ins with several other popular drivers, including another notable run-in with Chase Elliott that led to Elliott's suspension in 2023. He's also, known to run drivers out of room that are very popular, such as Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, and in general, kind of, likes to speak out of two sides of his mouth from time to time. With that said, though, Hamlin is still one of the most competitive drivers year over year in the Cup Series' history. And the career he's put up has been really, really fascinating and truly incredible. But he's mostly unliked because he has tangles with Hendrick Motorsports drivers and other drivers that drive Chevys.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, I think the only way you can ever compare stock car racing to other professional sport is why people don't like Denny Hamlin. And a lot of it's just because he's really good. I think people just love to hate greatness a lot of the time. And Denny Hamlin is the best driver to never win a championship. And he was a mere 40 seconds away from being one of the best with the championship. So I think that's the only comparison. Besides like obviously the Hendrick situations and stuff like that, I don't really know what else Hamlin has done. I am one of those people that I truly don't really hate any athletes because they're all loving what they do. And I'm sitting here on a broken chair in my bedroom talking about something I love. So I'm nowhere to try to put other athletes down doing what they're doing, whether they're buttheads or not. So that's why I never understood hatred. I guess you can critique me as a sports fan. But yeah, so I think for him, with Denny Hamlin, a lot of it, I truly believe it's because he's a really damn good race car driver who lost a lot of positivity today, and I feel horrible for him because you don't know what's next for him at this point. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that because I thought that was a good point.
I think he just plays into the villain role quite a bit too. I mean, Tanner was making the point about him, getting into it with the fans. His 11 against the world flag, I beat your favorite driver, all that stuff. But I think the difference is if you follow Denny on Twitter or if you listen to his podcast, I think Denny comes across sort of as one of the more relatable, likable villains across all of sports, and I think that might be the difference. At least for me, I don't have any like I said, I've tried to remove myself from the fan aspect since I've been here for the last 5 years. I'll always have a soft spot for AJ Allmendinger, who's my childhood favorite driver, and the 2025 LASCAR Cup Series champion. By the way, that much is completely undisputed, so I might have to bid on that certificate when Brock prints that. At least Kaulig gets some sort of consolation award out of their trophy hunting season, I guess. I don't know. But for whatever that's worth.
Unless Larson gets DQ'd.
Well, there you go. There's that too.
Not to put that in the world, but I mean, that is a possibility.
That's the one thing that could make this even more messy.
Hilarious. Yeah.
I think there's a variety of factors here, but I do think despite all of that, and Denny even said it himself, I think they asked him, like he was in the top 5. We all know Chase Elliott's going to win the award again. I've said on this show before, we need term limits. It's been 34 years, I think, since an Elliott or an Earnhardt, somebody outside of those two families won the most popular driver award. We all know Chase is going to win it, but Denny's in the top 5. And even Denny himself was kind of taken aback by that. I think part of that was because he's had a good season. He was, like we said, 40 seconds away from a championship today. Should have won the title in this format with how it was playing out. Should have been the champion, and he is. I think he's beyond Junior Johnson. He's beyond Mark Martin. I think it is now not even debatable. He is the best driver in the history of the Cup Series to never win a championship, and I guess he's got a couple more years to maybe do it. But I feel like
I feel like, and Matthew, you jumped from LA to Edmonton to Washington to Milwaukee. You'll appreciate this. But when the Bucks won the championship in 2021, I said to myself, I'm so happy for Giannis, but this feels like Chris Paul's last best chance to win a championship. He's going to keep coming back for a few more years. He's going to keep having shots at it, but this felt like his last best chance. This, to me, felt like Denny Hamlin's last best chance to win a championship today. And I think the fact that he's come away empty-handed has a lot of fans feeling sympathetic for him.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are just feeling sympathetic for him. A lot of great points. Denny Hamlin, great driver, without a doubt the best without a championship. Humperdinck brings up, do you worry fans have become so accustomed to these manufactured aspects of the sport that even if they say they want to return to the good old days, you also find it super boring if they do? That's a good question. I'm on the fence.
Go ahead, Joe.
I would say you get the general motorsport fans like IndyCar more vested compared to the casual fans. Other thoughts?
I would love some more boring races. I really would. I would love some more true boring races. Give me a single file restart. Give me no stage racing. Give me, no playoff system. I would give it all back to watch a race from like 2003 in the year 2026. I really would. Like the gimmicks have completely eroded any sort of integrity in this sport. And frankly, if we could just get back to basics and do that right, throw a gimmick in there every now and again, I don't think anybody would bat an eye. But it's just, they have gimmicked the sport up to an epic degree that I don't even know how they come back from this. Like, they could go full season the next 3 years and, a relatively rightful champion will get crowned each year. But, like, the sting of this is going to last for years to come for a lot of people, especially Hamlin fans. There might be Hamlin fans that never watch another NASCAR race again because of how frankly insulting the finish of that race is to them and how insulting the past 20 years have been. So, yeah, I mean, sure, we could say maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side, but is the grass at least growing? We've been in mud for years on this side of the hill. I would take yellow grass, any sort of length of foliage on that other side over what we have playing in the mud on the other side of the hill.
Forgive me, I forget who the first person was to say it, but I've seen multiple people tweet this over the last, and you saw it again with Zilich last night. People talk about Game 7 moments, how this format guarantees every year we get a Game 7 moment. Today was not a Game 7 moment. Matthew, bro, what your Dodgers did last night, that was a Game 7 moment. What we saw today was a next score wins moment. This system here, again, you can go into today, liking what you like, or wanting a full season format, I understand the people are going to say, well, this is what we have now. The way this system should work, Denny Hamlin should have been the champion today. That should have been your walk-off Game 7 moment. He put in the drive of his life on that final restart, had a multiple second lead, was running away with it. And yet, in a system designed to reward winning, a guy that hasn't won in months, who didn't even lead a lap today, who didn't even win the race today, is the champion instead because of something that happened completely out of the leader Denny Hamlin's control. That is not a Game 7 moment. That is a re-rack him and the next score wins moment. Forget the first 35 races. Forget the first 310 laps of this race. We're going to neutralize the field with a caution because of something that happens completely irrelevant to the guy that was leading the race, and the next score wins. And that's your season-long champion. That's what this system gave us today. May it never happen again.
We'll see how everything will all shape up. Before we get to the next question, Matthew, I know you got to go because of deadlines, but you got, so we'll let you go. Any last words before we let you go for the night?
A lot. I mean, one, I just with my chair. That's I gained a little too much weight apparently, or this Walmart chair. That's why my camera's angled down. But yeah, I want to say thank you on behalf of Grid Network. Obviously, another full season of writing for you guys. Make sure to check out gridnetworktv.com. It was a pleasure to have Ben on the show and then bringing Tanner in. It's been so much fun this season for NASCAR specifically to be with all of you guys every way. Unfortunately, I don't think it ended the way all of us really wanted it to end in that sense, just the way all the circumstances were. But holy hell, it's been such a fun time this year with all of you guys, and I look forward to continuing this on. Wishing everyone the best of luck. And then, yeah, keep continuing on. There's a lot more to talk about. I just have to finish up the story and do some other things beforehand. So I really appreciate you guys for letting me get off here. And, yeah, just thank you guys all again. And there's a lot more to talk about. I'm really excited for you guys to continue listening on.
Matthew, I hope you can make the encore finale in 8 days. You're all going to be invited for 5 to 10 minutes. We're planning something really special. I hope you can make it. But thank you again for your contributions to this team, and best of luck with the rest of your plans tonight.
Gotcha. I will make sure I'm there just for you. It's been a pleasure. Until the next time, guys, I hope you guys stay and continue watching this episode.
Thank you so much. And once again, Matthew Bro, Grid Network TV. Follow gridnetworktv.com, where we'll have article posted by him. Catch up on the chat room a little bit before we get to the next question. That is going to be from Gus Lightning. Larson was 18th, by the way. He worked his way to the top 10. He was fast. I think without a doubt, if Kyle Larson was the dominant car, went out there, won the race, this would not be a discussion at all. This was the fact that he just happened to be one pit stop, one right call, and it just took advantage of the situation, denying Denny Hamlin a championship, and of course, overtime, messing that up. We also have, I hope the drivers get the opportunity to win the championships. I've been watching sprint since 2002. They have come a long way, Logano Brad, with so much skills and promise. And then we also have Dean Griffin. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stop winning. Hamlin's team decided to take...
Nobody can spell whining right. He means stop whining.
Hamlin's team decided to take 4 tires instead of 3. He did not need to pit even. That was something we saw.
Yeah, okay. Brad Keselowski proved that you definitely needed to pit. We got an unabashed answer to that question.
I mean,
so you can discard that dumb opinion. No offense.
Well, I mean, he was one turn away. I mean, I think there is some merit to what Doherty was saying on the post race show. That you can always second guess, how good of a restart Hamlin would have gotten or how fast. But what they did clearly didn't work. So. It would have taken something else there, but yeah, again, and I appreciate that, Dean. He's saying sorry in the chat here, but yes, I mean, if you want to have an open and honest conversation here, I am more than willing, more than happy to do that. But if you're just going to tell us to stop whining, then again, I'm sorry. That's the toxic positivity. That's just as bad as the toxic negativity here. I think when you have, and you're seeing it right now play out on social media, a lot of people are not happy, and I think they have every reason to be. It's justifiable to not be happy with what we saw tonight. And if you just completely turn a blind eye to the faults of this sport, then you're not doing your job well enough. And that's the situation that we have here.
You don't have to keep carrying water just because you liked what you saw. Like that to me is what this all boils down to. If you didn't have a problem with it, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But I'm sorry, I try to ground myself in reality as much as possible, and I try to do that with the viewers as well when I, spew out all these facts and statistics to try to rationalize a take that I have. And frankly, everything about how this whole playoffs, how this specific race played out, there's just nothing gratifying about that. And if you found gratification in it, that's cool. That's great. I hope you keep watching until the end of time. But, the way that this was all determined, all of it came down to a chunk of rubber coming off of a tire with 3 laps to go. Is that really how you want to determine a champion of something?
It's a lottery. It's literally a lottery.
Yeah.
Whose tire was going to make it to the end? What was the timing going to be? Like I said,
Denny was at the slot machine, and the third 7 was about to come down, and they got jammed.
I mean, great way of putting it. Yeah.
And that's the thing you mentioned about yesterday, that Game 7 in the Major League Baseball World Series. Those fans, the ones in Toronto that are feeling the sting of, hey, we were one run away at the bottom of the ninth to get that win, but we didn't. They still had a shot to win. It's the same two teams, the same format. You know how it comes down. You've had a long season. And that's a much different way compared to what Denny Hamlin. Yeah, you could say, oh, it's the rules and this is the overtime. But at the end of the day, on track to get his 7th win, a championship, comes up short. And a call by the pit crew, a call by Larson's pit crew, who did just happened to be ahead of him on that lap. If there was another 2 or 3 laps, different story. But unfortunately, overtime changes the game. In that case, one thing that really changed the race. I should stop saying game. Goodyear tires. They brought a softer tire to promote more racing. We saw them try this earlier in the year with the option tires, of course. People's, this is really good because it seemed like the racing product of Phoenix has not been that entertaining when we come here for the championship. Well, we hadn't seen this for quite some time, but it became a problem today with Goodyear because the number of tires that were blowing, we saw it start early in the weekend with Chase Briscoe. The next you know, we saw Chase Briscoe, right rear blew out. Here comes a caution. Colleague Richard Shoulders Racing Teams, issues for the 3, 8, 10, and the 16. Hard hit was knocked out of the race. I thought, okay, maybe this is just those teams were too aggressive, then Chase Briscoe. But then during the caution, Hamlin, flat tire under the stage 2 brake. Lost multiple positions on pit road. Kyle Larson, the thumbnail we have is not him celebrating. That's him when he had a flat tire and was smoking. Chase Briscoe again after Kyle Larson. Carson Hocevar, blown tire, hit the wall, brought the first caution for stage 3. The 48, the 2 brought cautions out with their flat tires. 3 laps to go. William Byron, tire down, ran to the wall. I would say at least every time somebody ran to the wall, we had a caution. So at least there was that consistency. But William Byron post-race said something very interesting. He hated the fact that it was him that brought out the caution, and he hated it for Denny Hamlin. I think he knew he raced Denny Hamlin. The two of them raced hard. They beat and bang. Hamlin had the better car. Hamlin was more deserving of that race win. Tanner, did the Goodyear tire situation take away from this race? Or was this just a part of racing and the teams maybe going too soft on the tire pressures?
I think this is a very nuanced issue, and I'm going to try to take it in a different direction. I think the true tragedy of all of this, outside of, the Denny Hamlin and the whole points of it all, is this was an incredible Phoenix race. Like, I used to go to this track from every race from the fall of 2019 through the fall of 2023. So I went to 9 straight races in a row at Phoenix Raceway, and I had to hear people on Twitter and otherwise tell me for years that this track sucks and it has no business being a championship venue. And I am so tired of hearing that. This track is amazing. It certainly isn't the best on the circuit by far, but you can't tell me that this race today wasn't a barn burner until the last 3 laps and then the subsequent overtime. That was an amazing race that we watched. You could not tell me that you couldn't get around somebody because they aero blocked you. That was not a problem today. We watched drivers literally drive directly in the tire tracks of other cars and make passes. Like, that doesn't happen in the next gen car, and I don't think that that's going to get any sort of coverage outside of what I just said, which is terribly unfortunate. I will say that I think the tire is certainly a big part of that. But I'll say what I maintained earlier in the show. We should not be guinea pigging the one race championship race with a new tire that we have never driven on this track. No, I don't care that we had a 1 hour practice session on Friday and that was it. No, I don't care that we got the extended practice session. It's not enough time. That's not nearly enough data on a set of tires. Like, by the end of a race weekend, the practices should have amounted to around the average duration of one of the races. That's how much practice we should be having, but we don't for God knows what reason. The team owners seem to want it, but for some reason, the sanctioning body doesn't want to do it. And they keep cowering behind the teams, acting like they're the ones coming up with this idea, even though you have plenty of team owners vocally saying that they want this policy to end. So with all that in mind, I'm not going to blame Goodyear for trying really hard to make an incredibly aggressive and competitive tire. They did a great job to make this an extremely fascinating race until lap 310, and that's when everything went off the rails, and frankly, at that point, it wasn't their fault. Obviously, the wounded tire with Byron, that's not great. You don't want to see a ton of blowouts, which we did see today, but like I said, I think this is more on NASCAR than it is Goodyear. This isn't Goodyear's fault that NASCAR decides to only have one practice session, and this time it's 50 minutes instead of 20 like it normally is. It isn't Goodyear's fault that NASCAR doesn't allow teams to just test in general on their own outside of the season, outside of their tracks, outside of a constructed test specifically for NASCAR. This is not Goodyear's fault. Goodyear would have tons more data if NASCAR just opened the playbook for the teams just a little bit. But no, we can't do that. We can't do that because for some reason, for some nebulous, unknown reason, we can't do that. All because the France family said no. So, no, I'm not going to blame Goodyear a drop, not a single ounce, for anything that happened today. This is all a culmination of NASCAR and their horrific decision-making over and over and over again at every step of the way. The flat tire, that's NASCAR's fault. The overtime, that's NASCAR's fault. And this tremendously awful format, finally also NASCAR's fault.
We're an hour 13 into the show. I don't have too much to add, so I'll keep it short here. And by the way, thank you to everybody watching. I know Josh, I think, sent a lot of his viewers, over here. So you see, we've got 56 on YouTube right now. Some watching on X/Twitter, and who knows if I think we even had a comment from Twitch come in. So thank you all for the support here. I have to say I am frustrated that so many drivers had tire issues today, and I don't know how much of that comes down to Goodyear bringing an experiment or a new tire versus the teams experimenting and trying to push the edge of what's possible in a race as important as this for a championship, and all the championship contenders being among those that had tire issues today. It's just unfortunate. But again, I think that proves the flaw of having a one race winner take all championship format, and why it seems like it's a near certainty at this point that we're moving away from this, regardless of whether we keep playoffs or a chase or anything like that or not. Because when you have a sport as chaotic as this, when you have situations like this that can happen completely out of your control, completely out of your own doing, it leaves the possibility open for something like what happened today to occur. And again, you can place the blame wherever you want. The question being, did the tire situation take away from the race? Well, absolutely, it took away from the race. It made the entire finish to the race about the issue, because even on top of everything that had already happened, the race was decided. Denny Hamlin was not going to be caught. And because we had yet another tire issue, and because the way this sport is, why we have overtime in a non-time sport, God only knows. Why we have playoffs in a sport that nobody says you play racing. We race here. There's no playing going on. It's a serious... Anyway, beside the point. It just adds on to the frustration of what we saw this weekend, and particularly tonight. I mean, again, I cannot believe that we were sitting here. Everybody was so concerned Corey Heim was not going to win the championship. Everybody was so concerned
that Connor Zilic was not going to win the championship, and he didn't win the championship. 88 team didn't even win the owner's championship, despite the fact that when Kyle Larson was in that car, he won. When Parker Kligerman got in that car, he won. I mean, the 88 team, that's just as much of an injustice on the owner's side as it is on the driver's side, but I'll have much more on that tomorrow night, obviously. And yet, we are the most fired up after the one of the 3 races where we said, oh, all 4 of these guys, if you look at it this way, maybe this one's got an edge, and maybe you can make a case for all 4 of them have had pretty good years. We somehow found a way to get the most fired up after the Cup race when the 2 other series had drivers with 10-win seasons. It's just unbelievable how this all played out.
The way this played out just added all that fuel to the fire, because if it was something like a William Byron or Chase Briscoe even, or Kyle Larson just dominated, that'd be a different story, but this was not the case. In the chat room, I agree, Denny had dominated most of the season. That is from Dean. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, this all goes back, of course, to that late caution and the tires. I mean, this obviously comes down to a pit stop. And I know we were talking about what you do, how should you approach it. My thought was pit, take 2 tires, because you got the fast car, you got the track position, that'll cover the base. Somebody has to get ahead of you. Denny Hamlin pitted with the lead. You had the 2 Penske drivers in between, then Kyle Larson and Chase Briscoe. Larson, Briscoe, several others took the 2 tires. That put Denny Hamlin behind him, where he lost the ground to Briscoe and Larson. The rest is history. It's easy to say, well, going with 4 tires was the wrong call, but at the time, at the moment, Tanner, do you believe when it came down to that moment, the belief that we have to do 4 tires because 2 tires wouldn't work, or staying out was even more risky? Do you think that was something where the pit crew felt like, particularly the crew chief, was like, we must do this?
I'm not a couch crew chief. I think it is based on what we saw throughout the race and the previous restart, which had about the same amount of variance on the left side tires for the right side tire takers. I mean, if you're Denny Hamlin, he got the lead in 2 laps on the previous restart against the couple of 2 tire guys, and then ducked underneath and past the other 4 tire guy. So, I mean, based off of the data we had available, he called it right, I think. I didn't think that he'd get beat off pit road by like 6 other cars, especially ones that weren't in for the championship. But just like Kevin Harvick in 2023 in the spring race, you kind of have to think about that. You got to think about what the time loss is going to look like. And not only that, like, you're entering pit road bunched up with everybody because it's under caution. So on top of everything else, you've definitely got to keep in mind that you have other competitors that could impede your path. And I think that the 11 team could have taken that more into account. At the same time, I really don't think it's logical to hold it against them, because, like I said, based on the data we'd seen throughout the race, the 2 tire strategy didn't even work on the first restart, and Larson had even worse left side tires going into that final restart compared to the people behind him. In theory, everything lined up for Kyle Larson to go backwards on that last restart if, like, Brad Keselowski blocked him in particular. That didn't end up happening, and Larson managed to claw his way to a second title. But, like, I really don't think I can hold it against Hamlin and that team for what they chose to do. It seemed like the right call based on what we saw in this race and in the truck race on Friday night. It just did not work out.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to play couch crew chief. a little bit here. I think for Tanner Smith, I respectfully disagree. I think it was by definition the wrong call because it didn't lead to a championship.
Well,
And again, you can. I'm coming at it from hindsight here, which is always 2020. But I think if Denny takes 2 tires and is on the same strategy as Kyle Larson, he gets out of pit road quicker, and I think it makes it easier for him to beat Larson straight up. So I'm not saying that I would have taken 2. I probably would have taken 4 if I'm glad I wasn't on the pit box because I had no idea what I was going to do as soon as the yellow came out there. But he didn't win the championship. I think you look back at that and say, if what he did not lead to the desired outcome, you would have had to do something different in order to potentially get there, which means either you pull an RFK and stay out there, or you do what Kyle Larson did and take 2 and hope that you beat him on a level playing field and probably get out of the pit sooner. Again, I'm not going to sit here and blame the 11 team either here because I probably would have made the same decision, but I'm just looking back at it. I can't sit here and say, oh, it was the right call. It just didn't work out. I don't know. It does leave me wondering what might have been if they had been on an equal strategy and equal terms and could have battled it out that way, but I guess we'll never know.
One of the things I kept wondering about, because when this caution came out, how much information does that crew chief have? Because we saw the prior caution. Briscoe, Larson took 2 tires. If they took 2 tires again, okay. You're going to try to gain spots on you, but you're going to have much older left side tires compared to those newer right side tires. If the crew chief had known that, would he have been more willing to say, let's go with 2 tires? Because there's no way with those much older left tires they could catch us. We'll have the track position. Guaranteed the track position on a 2-lap shootout where they've been good on the restarts. This is just one of those deals where I think this is something where it's easy to play that coaching, but crew chief. At the end of the day, you brought up a good point, Tanner, about what happened the prior restart where he had the 4 tires. Something else where I just feel like that could have worked out very well. I just think it was just a little too many cars in between the restart. He got a little loose. It just seemed like unfortunately it did not work out. The one thing Denny Hamlin said, he felt they made the right call. And it's always hindsight 2020, easier to say we should have done this, but there's a brutal way to lose it all. For Kyle Larson, that was the move earlier today. As Tanner remembers, somebody had said in their opinion, Cliff Daniels was holding back Kyle Larson. Well, that aged pretty poorly as Cliff Daniels made that 2-tire call on the right side, put Kyle Larson where he went on that high side, got around everyone, just put enough distance to get the championship. He looked stunned. He almost looked disbelief. Even saying one of the first things, I didn't lead a single lap today. We know he's been in a little bit of some would say a slump. He's even mentioned before the lack of confidence. He seemed to be having some issues after the Indianapolis 500 when the double did not go well at all. He had a tire issue in the race, but Cliff Daniels just seemed to put him in the right spot to get the positions just far enough of Denny Hamlin. I keep wanting to say win, but it's not the case. He did not win to get the championship. He just stayed far enough ahead. 3 cars was the difference. Ben, could this help propel that 5-team Kyle Larson next year to be the team we saw back in 2023, 2021 when he got wins, championship 4 appearance?
I mean, it might. I mean, Hendrick's a top team. Kyle Larson's a top driver. Kyle Larson's won 10 races before and won a championship. He won, I think, 6 races last year and didn't win a championship. He looked like he was maybe going to do that again this year, won 3 races very early on in the season, and then did the Indy 500 again. That, for the second year in a row, didn't go well trying to double and was kind of in a slump from there. And then all of a sudden is in the right place at the right time and wins the championship anyway because of the insane format that we have here.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a shot in the arm. It's going to feel. I mean, I know Kyle said it hasn't really sunk in yet. I don't know how it could possibly sink in because of how unexpected it would have been with just 5 laps to go today. In regulation, it ended up being more than that because we have overtime in a non-time sport for, again, God only knows what reason. I don't know. This is a team that has won. They've won a championship before. They've had dominant seasons before. And I don't know if people still are putting Kyle Larson on the level of Max Verstappen after, what's happened this year and everything. And goodness knows it's a can of worms that we don't even need to open on tonight's show because we're already almost an hour and a half in. But he is a talented race car driver and he has a good team underneath him. I think, it wouldn't surprise me if they go out and adapt to whatever format we have next year and maybe win the championship again and go back to back. But there's a lot that has to happen this offseason before I think we can even think about having that kind of conversation. It's just going to feel nice for the 5 team over the next couple of months and might be the only team in the sport that's feeling that way given what could happen with this impending lawsuit.
So my 8-win Hendrick Motorsports prediction from the preseason held true. They only won 8 races, if you can believe it. And yet they still managed to get away with it and win the title. Yeah, I think that a lot of the 5 teams' future competitiveness hinges on what Chevrolet does more than anything else. As I mentioned earlier in the show and in our preseason predictions video, if you want to have a good comedic look at that after this is over, I said that the 4th year on this platform with the Chevrolet Camaro, which has not been made new since the 2023 actual year, they might be entering a 5th year with it, and I think they'll be even worse if that's the case. I do think it helps them that, someone like SVG and someone like Connor Zilic are going to be, full-time drivers at the Cup level to help them push this car even further with the Chevy Camaro. Same thing with Carson Hocevar at Spire Motorsports. He had a great day going, and unfortunately it was unraveled like his right front tire. But that said, I could see them continuing this slow roll streak that they've been on where they can't win a race. I could see them finally going a full year without winning. But a lot of that hinges on what happens with Chevrolet. I've actually heard that they may have a 2026 model car that they just haven't revealed yet. But with that new model comes a whole lot of other question marks that could prevent them from visiting victory lane. So, yeah, I think if it stays the Camaro, the likelihood of them winning in the first, 14, 15 races next year, significantly lower than they were this year, especially because they're still, I would say, riding like a negative momentum at the moment. They've just been kind of mid since May, and they lollygagged and daydreamed their way to a title. Like, it literally got handed to them on a silver platter by their teammate blowing a tire. So you really couldn't write it any better than this. So yeah, I think that the 5 team could be competitive next year, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see the skid continue. It didn't stop skidding for Matt Crafton when he won a championship in a very similar circumstance back in 2019. So hard to say that Larson will exit the skid anytime soon based on the year that he had and the year that we've seen out of Chevrolet as a whole.
Well, Larson did win 3 times this year. Crafton hadn't won for 2.5 years when he somehow managed to win that title. So there is that going for him at least. But I didn't even think about that. Byron is Larson's teammate. And it's his tire that hits. I mean, I didn't even think about that aspect of it. My goodness. Not saying it was on purpose. I'm just saying it.
No,
the irony.
He was in second place. Like, I don't think he wanted to wreck.
I mean, I feel it'll be a lot if Larson blew the tire and Byron got it. But even then, I think people will say, yeah, but Byron had
4th or whatever. It wouldn't have mattered. Everybody'd still be mad.
I mean, people will still be mad. I think it'll be a little less of a sting just because Byron was fast, but just one of those deals where this format just did not. It was Denny Hamlin, or else people were not going to be happy the way he dominated this race, and that's what happened. He didn't win the race. Ryan Blaney won the race. Interesting fact: Penske. Not only did they win this for the second consecutive year. Ryan Blaney did not get it that year. It was Ross Chastain. But now they got it again. So they ended the NASCAR Cup season with a win. They also ended the IndyCar season with a win. Do you sense, Tanner, this organization might be a little bit more better spot compared to this year with the controversy of IndyCar, lack of wins in both series? Will they be stronger?
I don't think that the NASCAR team's performance has any bearing on the IndyCar team's performance. That said, I think as far as the NASCAR team is concerned, the 12 team has been, I would argue, probably the first through third driver this year at different times. I picked him multiple times throughout the season to win races that ultimately didn't end up shaking out that way, unfortunately. But the rest of the team is really the problem. It almost seemed like at times Josh Berry was the second Team Penske driver. And for Joey Logano being a 3-time defending champion, that's pretty bad, all things considered. I think that Team Penske has a lot to look at in the offseason, I would say. I think that it would behoove them to really take a look at their intermediate program in particular, which Phoenix in a win there and a win at New Hampshire and a win at Nashville or Daytona. None of those are really going to be indicative of speed at intermediates. Those are all of Ryan Blaney's wins. And then you obviously have Cindric's victory at Talladega, which again, not an intermediate. You have Logano's win at Texas, but come on. Texas may be an intermediate, but it's a house of chicanery in itself. But anyhow, to get to the broader point, I think that, this should motivate them going into 2026. I think that they have a driver in Ryan Blaney, who frankly is one of the 3 best drivers in the sport. I think if this moves to some goofy 3-3-4 championship round, if we do something like that with the points format, I think Ryan Blaney would have a very, very strong shot at winning a championship. Joey Logano too, maybe. But, considering this is how you perform over 4 races at 4 different kinds of racetracks, I'd put a little bit less money on Logano myself. With all that said, on the IndyCar side, I think that 2026 will probably be a little bit of a struggle in the same way that this year was. I think you'll see Penske after Indy probably start to get their stuff together, but I think the ideal scenario would have been to have kept Malukas over at Foyt for another year and then bring Power over. So that way you had 1 year of stasis with the new organization, especially considering he was your best driver for practically the entire season. But Roger Penske must know better than I do, so I'm going to have to trust his judgment. But I think bringing in a guy that hasn't won a race over a guy that has the most poles and has 2 championships in the series history is pretty insulting to your race team and kind of dumb. But we'll see how it plays out for him. This is nothing against Malukas. I think that he's a fabulous young driver, but again, he's just unproven to this point. And while I would love to see him succeed, I mean, throwing him in a Penske car before he's won a single IndyCar race is just bad praxis, in my opinion.
I don't know. I've been so out of IndyCar this year. I'm not even going to go there again. We've gone on long enough here. But again, in terms of a NASCAR program, Ryan will celebrate this win, I guess. Doesn't seem like a lot of people care. Doesn't seem like a lot of people are talking about it because all the talk is about how Denny Hamlin lost the championship, not even how Kyle Larson won it here. So, again, maybe it's nice to end the season on a high note. It's nice to celebrate race win. Those are hard to come by in the Cup Series, and Ryan Blaney did what he had to do today to get that done. More power to him. I'm sure he wishes he were in the championship 4 because, who knows what would have happened if he were in the championship 4 today. They probably would have raced a little bit differently, but he had the car to win the race today. More power to him. But I don't know, again, that this means much of anything heading into 2026. There's still so much that has to happen this offseason before we can even start thinking about that I think they're just going to celebrate this win, and the cards will fall where they may next year.
Be interesting to see how everything shapes up for Team Penske next year. A lot going on with that organization. Let's go to the chat room. It's been a little bit of a while. Starting off with Al. It's funny how people cry when the race ends under yellow, so NASCAR makes it overtime, so a race ends under green. Seems you can't please everyone. Great job, Larson. That's always the case. I feel like that was just one of those deals. This rule was brought in. We see sometimes people talk about it when IndyCar ends under yellow. I think the majority of the time it's not exactly the best way to let a race play out. If anything, maybe a rule on yellow comes out with 5 or 6 laps to go, throw a red flag. But some clear defined rules, I think, could be a big help in avoiding this mess. On another note, I would like to know your opinion as an American NASCAR fan on the 88 SVG with 5 wins, number of road courses in playoffs, openness to foreign drivers. We see then Denver, one of our regulars, responded, as an American NASCAR fan, you should be grateful that SVG is NASCAR helping drivers be better road courses. He is measuring the stick of road course racing in NASCAR. We've said it several times on this program. SVG is just on such another level. He's getting better on the ovals, and I think if he continues this trend, I know today didn't exactly go well for him. There he is over in 24th, but still, bit of a recovery considering he spun. He could be one to watch next year. Already mentioned that from Al. If Larson's in a so-called slump, I hate to see if he wasn't. The rest of the field would be in serious trouble. That was 2021 Kyle Larson. 10 wins. Gets a championship. I think we got to remember that pre-race show that year, we were talking about if Kyle Larson does not get the championship with his 10-win season, is this a black eye for the sport? Well, he got that championship. The irony of now, here we are years later, and it's Kyle Larson winning a championship, and people saying, this is not sitting well. Denver. Supercars Grand Finale is a 3-race shootout. If NASCAR has a 3 or 4 race shootout, it will solve the championship format. Everyone will get a true champion instead of a crapshoot champion.
I'm sorry, I disagree. I think it's still too small of a sample size for it to be representative of a full season performance, and you could still have, after 3 races or after 4 races or whatever, the margins could be so tight that maybe it is basically like you're almost even, and maybe it's only 2 of the 3 that are left, and who knows what the 3-3-4 format would actually look like here. But again, like I said earlier in the show, I'm done with the compromises. It has to be a full 36 or bust. I think fans are just too fed up with the gimmicks and what the system provides with multiple resets. I mean, especially if it's 3-3-4, you're still having just 1 fewer reset than you have now, and the cutoffs, the cut lines allow for race manipulation to come back into play. It exponentially increases the temptation for that. It's just, I'm done with all of it. Got to be 36 or bust.
I hate to bring up the dumb hypothetical again, Denver, but again, what happens if somebody wins all 32 regular season races and we have a 4-race finale and they brick every race? Do you really feel like the person that won those 4 races or finished the best of those 4 races would be a deserving title winner over somebody that won 32 races?
And people are going to bring up the hypotheticals and say that's never going to happen. You're missing the point. The point is the fact that it could happen, the fact that it is a mathematical possibility in this format to win 35 races, or even to win 15 races or 25 races or 10 of the, whatever it is, 32 races, whatever Connor Zilic had, and lead every other metric in 18 straight top 5s. And because he didn't shine when the lights were the brightest on one night, it completely alters who goes down in the record books as season champion. That is the problem. It's not that anybody ever is going to win 35 races. We have too much parity in the sport. Of course,
We're not saying that's going to happen. We're saying the format allows the possibility for it to happen, and that in and of itself is absurd on its face.
Yeah, should absolutely disqualify any other format or idea anybody has. If that is a statistical possibility, you just need to throw that idea out and start over. Like that's as simple as I can put it. Like, no matter what you do, the winner of, like, whoever wins the regular season championship is never going to get enough of an advantage in any sort of format that it's going to propel them to a championship anyway. It doesn't happen. Martin Truex Jr. put on an absolute clinic in 2017. He won more races than anybody else, had more top fives, more top tens, more poles than everybody. In fact, if this had been the 10-race chase format in 2017, Martin Truex Jr. would have been the first person to lock it up prior to Homestead. That's how dominant of a season that he had. That's not even to mention the full season format where he would have absolutely dusted everybody as well. And the fact that he could have at Homestead slipped a tire on the last lap while Kyle Busch was a half second back and lost the title in the process, it is just mind-bogglingly stupid, frankly. Like, there is no sense to any playoff format in motorsports. It is frankly too unpredictable. And again, we had two drivers from what was effectively the 2007 New York Jets stay up at the front of the field for genuinely no reason to try to win the race at the end of the weekend. And we had them completely muck up the final restart and ultimately the championship because we decided in one race because we have no brain cells to spare to come up with a better format than this. It's just so agonizingly frustrating having to, like, even try to rationalize this. Like, it's dumb. Just call it what it is. It is dumb. All of the last 20 championships in this sport, whether they were earned or not, are dumb in a sense. Dumber than the previous 28 from 75 to 2003. Every single one of these playoff championships is stupid. It was built on stupidity, and I feel bad for all the champions that have gotten one in this format that'll have them ruthlessly raked over the coals. But, like, there's really nothing to be done. I mean, they all signed a contract to sign up for this coming into every season. You can say that for sure. But, like, I'm sure if the drivers got any sort of a say on how this stuff was decided, we wouldn't have what we had unless the one vote that decided everything was Joey Logano's. Period.
And one thing, when it comes to this format of this championship and everything, we heard how Hines had said, it is frustrating that he was so dominant and he has to be in a must-win situation for this race. We heard how Connor Zillage said, well, I guess the lights didn't shine the brightest, and you could tell it's sort of he's frustrated with this format. You don't see that in any other form of motorsports. You don't see the second place driver being like, oh, I wish we had a playoff because I would have had a shot at Pelot. They may joke around about it, but then when they're asked, do you really want it? They're probably going to be like, no. This format, again, this was all part of the Brian France idea back in 2004, and we've been seeing how a lot of stuff from his leadership is not exactly aging well. This has truly not aged well, and then just gotten to the point where you don't have everyone saying, I mean, with the Toronto Blue Jays, Seattle Blue Jay fans say it stings, but they could at least say, hey, they played a good game. They did everything they could. They just came up short. This one, someone could easily say, point to the pit stop. You can point to this, point to that, but at the end of the day, a tire essentially upended what could have been a story of, a driver no longer being the best without a champion, and instead capping off what could be a potential Hall of Fame career. Also in the chat room, I come to appreciate just how many people enjoyed the playoffs. Maybe not the pundits, but I've seen plenty of passive reception from the average fans, including in the chat. Without a doubt, I think if we've always said difference of opinions on the championship, that's great. I think as Ben has always alluded, don't say we're whining. Don't say, one side's smart, one side's not smart. If you love the championship in the playoffs, hey, if you're enjoying this, that's great. Discussions, there's always room for that too. Improvements, NASCAR, we know they're looking at it. Be interested to see what happens. So NASCAR screw either format they go with next year. Ben, your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, and I think to Humperdinck's point, I know what I said at the start of the show. I can't say I understand it anymore. But even now, when I'm at the point where I can't understand it, if you like what you saw today, Tanner, you said this earlier in the show too. God bless you, man. Like you got exactly what you wanted. You got max entertainment and chaos. It's not for me. It's not for a lot of people, clearly, but clearly there are still some people that are out there that I guess love this sport too much to see what we see in this format and are going to continue to watch it anyway, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinions. I just got a tweet, a Twitter reply in one of the threads that I've been in, and goodness knows I've been tweeting probably too much over the last couple of hours, but somebody responding to somebody would have been responding to me and saying, then quit watching it, LOL. And I just followed up by saying, note to everyone saying this. Plenty of people already have, and that's why the ratings are in the tank. So even if I grant to you that, because I put that poll out there, and obviously I think my follower base is a little bit more skewed towards being anti-playoff because I've always been very anti-playoff. But, but the split I think has been about 60% on most polls on average, 60% full season, 25% 10-race chase, which we're going to get into here in just a moment, and 15% some sort of elimination playoffs with cut lines and everything. Even if I grant you that 15% of the 2 million people that are still watching every week, give or take, like this system, how many more millions of people have quit watching since 2014 that quit watching because they don't like this system? Those people need to be taken into account too, I think, when we're having this conversation. You can say, oh, well, 15% is still 15%. I don't think it's really 15%. I think it's an even smaller percentage of that when you look at where the ratings were. And I get that there are plenty of reasons why ratings are down. TV and the contracts that we've signed the last couple of years, that plays a role in it. Obviously, a lot of sports are down in the ratings, but I don't think any sport has consistently declined as much. Looking at a chart, correlating it to when these decisions were made by the sport. I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm not saying that it's the only problem, but it sure as hell ain't the solution. We saw plenty of tweets from people this weekend. I think Taylor Kitchen was saying she was watching the race with her dad and trying to explain that Corey Haim could potentially not win this championship. And her dad is supposedly of the demographic of like, this is the casual fan that the one race finale is supposed to draw in because look at how exciting and unpredictable it is. And his reaction is just, well, that's stupid. What do you mean he might not be the champion, right? That's the great irony of this. That's one of many great ironies of this system. But you're disillusioning the current fan base, the diehard fan base, while simultaneously not bringing in the casual fan base that you said the system was going to bring in. And I don't know how you look at that and say this system is doing what it was intended to do. Again, if you like it, that's fine. I don't understand how you can continue to defend it over alternatives after what we saw this weekend, but that's your prerogative. But you can't tell me with a straight face that it has been successful. You can't tell me with a straight face that it has been good for the sport's long-term health and well-being. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, the peak of the sport was 2005. That was 20 years ago, and in the time since, we've lost 60% of the Daytona 500 audience. Like, I think that really says it all right there. Like, the 15% that Ben quoted is probably closer to 3 to 5, really.
I think that's fair.
So,
yeah.
Why is our sanctioning body being held hostage by what is essentially maybe 1 million total people?
Well,
maybe
if you go back, maybe it's admitting failure. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to do that, but
they have a very bad history of not doing that. So you're right. It could very well be that. I mean, hell, this entire court case is pretty much centered around NASCAR not, having any sort of accountability within their ranks. So, go figure on that.
Joe, I think you might be muted.
Yep, muted. First, been a while since I've done that, so catching up in the chat room. Al, 100% what you just said, playoffs are ridiculous. Justin, I told the fan council that if we have this format next year, I'm out. And listen to how much I have invested in the sport. Totally about $7,000 in this last 5 years. Not much. I'm over this. Robert, I love it the way it is. Just me. And at the same time,
Robert.
Fantastic show. Thank you so much, Robert, for tuning in. Subscribe, hit that bell icon.
We appreciate that. You're entitled to that opinion, but
I appreciate that you both disagree with us, but enjoy the program.
This is all about motorsports, and one of the big things, of course, we follow Formula One. They're going to be still going. MotoGP, supercars. So tune in to Grid Network because we'll still be on the air just about every Sunday when they're racing. At the moment, the two drivers being affected by Denny and Connor at the moment where the fans is angry about, which those doesn't affect me. Not for my either, but I've learned to appreciate NASCAR from a distance. This is an audience for this, and it's for any new fans of the sport. You may not have the baggage of knowing what it used to be.
I think
Getting
that'd be
old.
true if we didn't live in the age of information where you could simply just Google how anything happened in NASCAR before 2004. Like if this was 1980 and you said that, sure, yeah, that'd be reasonable to say. But I mean, you have people that like Matthew. Matthew never grew up in the Winston Cup format. He was 2 years old when that ended, and he's pining for something he's never had. That is how damaged the sport is.
yeah. Well, and I said this 2 years ago after I was listening to SiriusXM. Like I was 7 years old when I first started watching the sport, and even younger when we introduced the chase. And I'm arguing for a full season. Pete Pistone's been in the sport longer than I've even been alive. He says he likes the playoffs. Like, just because you're of a certain demographic doesn't mean you're going to fall a certain way on this debate. And Tanner, to your point as well, people that don't study history are bound to repeat it. You can go back and look. It doesn't matter how old you are. Everybody's got one of these in their hands, right? Everybody's got access to go back and watch old races and study the history of the sport and how we used to do it. And you don't have to be of a certain age or experience a certain thing or grown up with a certain thing to say, how they did it, how they used to do it actually makes a lot of sense. That actually seems like a more fair way to crown a season-long champion than just letting it all ride on an overtime restart in one race.
There's mountains of content about the 1992 Hooters 500 for a damn good reason.
And that's what I was going to say. The 1992 season, watch out from start to finish and how that becomes a slow building championship battle to the very last race. There was plenty of twists and turns from Davey Allison's injuries, Davey Allison's wreck, what Alan Kulwicki was doing throughout the entire season, the struggles of Dale Earnhardt. This was not made for this playoff system was made the idea, we just ramp up the intensity at the end of the season. All this because of 2003, when you missed out what happened in 1992. You missed out what happened in past years where we had a great season. So overall, it's just something else. We are coming down to the last question. Notable shout-outs we want to recognize. Of course, Brad Keselowski, second place. Kyle Busch, fifth place finish. One of the big things, the streak of the top 10 every year. Michael McDowell, eighth place finish. Justin Haley, final race with Spire Motorsports, 14th. Dan Suarez, final year with Trackhouse, 19th. SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, your rookie of the year, finished 24th, spun earlier by rebound. But William Byron, 33rd after that late tire failure. So now we get to the point where the season's coming is over. We have seen this playoff format pretty much since 2014 when they introduced the stages. Then later on, they introduced the playoff points, so it wasn't just a complete reset. It's interesting to know that had we had those stage points awarded today, very likely the way they finished, Hamlin would have been the winner because he won stage 2 and finished second in stage 1. In this entire format of the playoffs, 8 drivers have won a championship in the playoff system. 3 drivers have won the championship more than once. Jimmy Johnson earned his 7th championship under this format, but only 3 teams have gotten it more than once. Gibbs, Hendrick, Penske. Stewart Haas Racing, Furniture Row each have 1 championship, and that was it. But you look at the drivers, all of them that have won, all of them are Hall of Fame worthy. But I have to ask, and you mentioned a little bit about this earlier, Ben, in the show. How would this era be remembered compared to the Chase champions from 2004 to 2013 and the Winston Cup era champions of the Sound on the Sport to 2003?
Yeah, I mean, we can say they're all Hall of Fame names. I don't know. I'm trying to think. If Ryan Newman had won it in 2014, I think Ryan Newman is probably not going to get into the Hall of Fame. Maybe he has a second career as an owner or something. But, the only champion in the history of what is now the Cup Series that is not either already in the Hall of Fame, still active, or recently retired and not yet eligible is Bill Rexford, who won it in 1950. And that is quite possibly the only season that had a more controversial championship than what we have now with this system, because Lee Petty should have won that title, and Bill France, there's that France family again, Tanner. Bill France took away like over 800 points because he didn't like that Lee Petty ran a non-NASCAR sanctioned race, even though everything was all different back then and people were trying to run as many races as they could to make as much money as they could to just put bread on the table for their families. Bill France didn't like what Lee Petty was doing, and so he basically literally handed the championship away from him and handed it to one-time Cup Series winner Bill Rexford, and he is to this day the only NASCAR champion of the Cup Series that is not in the Hall of Fame. Maybe he gets in eventually. I don't know. I know people have sometimes said all our champions should be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think Bill Rexford has much of a case for it. How will this era be remembered to the Chase format? I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because I was just having a conversation with our friend Matthew Owens the other night. And Matthew asked me, why does Tony Stewart's run in 2011 is so fondly remembered? Everybody remembers on the insane epic run that he went on, winning 5 of the last 10 races and taking a car that barely got him a chase. Tony himself was saying we don't deserve to be in a chase, and then he goes on this run and he's the champion, and everybody seemed to love that. I can respect what Tony Stewart did. It was one hell of a run to go on in 2011 to win that title and take the fight to Carl Edwards and win it on a tiebreaker in the final race. You could say it was a Game 7 moment. You could say it was whatever you want to call it. I think you have to at least look at what Tony did with the system that he and everybody else was given and pay your respects to the man, because it was a damn impressive run. Having said that, Tony said it himself at the start of a chase. The part of the season before that, the majority of the season, the first 26 races, he was nowhere near worthy or deserving of a championship under any sort of format you could come up with. It was only in the final rounds where he turned it on, found some sort of switch, and ended up taking the fight to the guy who probably should have won the championship under a full season. And again, that argument is sometimes difficult to make because, of course, the racing would be different given the different circumstances. But I look at a run like that. I look at runs that, guys like the Joey Logano's of the world. Joey won 3 championships under this format. I've never blamed the drivers for it. Of course, the racing would have been different. Of course, drivers will maximize the system to their advantage. Joey was one of the best at doing that in this format. Maybe you could say Kyle Larson is now too. Now that he's gotten 2 of them for whatever that's worth. I think the first one was much more of a statement than this one was. But I think, unfortunately, we are going to look back on this era. And Kamikaze Games put out a video this week. It must be 36, and said, I don't know if this is having my cake and eating it too, but he said he hopes that we look back on this era as playoff champions, quote unquote, that it's not considered the same as season-long championship. I don't expect that to happen. Quite frankly, I don't think that should happen, because again, it's not the driver's fault that NASCAR went with this system and stuck with it for a little more than a decade. But I do think we're going to look back particularly at what happened tonight and think to ourselves, how in the world did we ever think this was a good idea? And how in the world did we stick with it for 12 seasons and determine our champions this way for such a long period of history in our sport. I hope I can say I leave this era. We haven't gotten an announcement yet. We have a pretty good idea that it's changing. Who knows what it's going to be? But I can only hope and pray that we go back to a full season. I hope we can close this chapter of the history of our sport, and may we never go back.
A particular clip from SpongeBob comes to mind where the character Sandy Cheeks has a detonator in her hands and she says, "Did somebody say boom?" That's what I want to happen to this format. I have been watching this sport since the day I was born 29 years ago. And in fact, the very first race weekend I was alive was actually for the Phoenix Fall race, when it was the only date that track had for Cup. And, obviously we had a very interesting title fight that year between Jeff Gordon and Terry Labonte, where the more consistent Labonte ended up coming out on top, which I'm sure angered many people at the time because Gordon had won 10 races. Obviously growing up, the first big memory I have of NASCAR is unfortunately Dale Sr.'s passing. So, I didn't get a whole lot of the Winston format. I didn't ruthlessly watch because, when you're an elementary schooler, you don't really get to choose what you do every day. So, with that in mind, I couldn't watch every Sunday like I would have wanted to, truly keep up with the sport like I do nowadays. But even when Matt Kenseth won the title over my favorite driver at the time in 2003, I didn't have any problem with it because I was just like, Matt's been in the top 10 practically every race this year. He should win the title. He has been consistently ahead of most people. And if you read my Champions Prelude article on gridnetworktv.com, you can see exactly what led to Matt's championship run in 2003 after he won the most races the previous year in 2002. But, we got through the chase format. As a kid, I was like, okay, sure. But my dad hated it. Obviously watched many years where it was a relatively interesting dynamic, but clearly by year 3 through 7, one team cracked the code pretty well. And even still, I have so much respect for every one of Jimmy Johnson's titles, including the playoff one, because boy, did he have to go earn that one. But with all that said, I don't know how you can look at this era of the sport with a truly objective lens, because like I said earlier in a different question, the existence of the NASCAR playoffs makes you challenge your perception of reality. And, I think that the thing that this will be remembered for, this entire format, will be it gave Joey Logano 3 championships. The 2014 playoffs was, excellent television. Let me just say that. And I think the rightful champion of that year got crowned, but the way that we had to go through it, obviously not ideal. With all that said, I think that this format will ultimately be remembered for just never really being that satisfying. I think that when you strive for Game 7 moments every year, you kind of forget how teams get to Game 7s in other sports. Game 7s are not scheduled. You have to go through the first 4, then 5, then 6 games to get to that 7th game. And for some unknown reason, Brian France and his collective group of cronies thought that we just have to have a Game 7 every year. Baseball, basketball, hockey, they don't have Game 7s every year because it's not necessary. Sometimes somebody just goes out and puts belt to butt, to borrow from our good friend Matthew, who had to depart early. And they deserve to be rewarded for it, for putting that belt on them. They deserve it. Denny Hamlin put the belt on everybody for 310 laps and, in fact, led the 312th lap today, which should have closed the race out. But that's not what we got. What we got instead was a guy finishing, clinging on third place, winning the title over the guy that led most of the event and had a 3.5-second lead prior to the guy who won the title, his teammate, blowing a tire. So I think that the playoffs will live in infamy amongst the fan base for a long time until hopefully we've had enough space away from it that nobody thinks about it as hard anymore. But we're going to have 12 years of champions where you just kind of look at it like, but like, who had the better season? And then, you're going to have a whole other can of worms come up that way. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, maybe I'm complicit. I watch every week, but like, I try to be responsible and tell people when I see something wrong. And I mean, even at age 18, watching my driver win the championship at Homestead in 2014, I was still like, damn, we won the title like that? That won the title? Newman could have won it, and he hadn't won a race all year? This is a format that's supposed to encourage winning. Like, this whole format is going to be remembered for all of the wrong reasons, and frankly, that's exactly what it deserves. May it rest in the deepest, shallowest grave. Those are conflicting points, but may it lay in the shallowest grave and feel every bit of weathering and erosion that it deserves, because this format is terrible, and we never need to see it again, or any variation of it. 36 races or bust.
May it rest in pieces, I think is the term you're looking for, Tanner.
There was a different word I was going to use, but I'd gone this far without throwing a real cuss word out there, and I didn't want to break that.
And I was going to say it was a shallow grave, deeper, because you don't want it to be bring back from the dead. So let's keep that where it is. We are just about out of time. Before we close, go through some last chat room comments. I lost the 1998 Super Late Models Championship with 9 wins, 22 top 5 under a very similar format. I have more overall points, lost more in the last race, finished third in the points. That is a rough.
Royale, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Even Humperdinck, that's good, and it's hard. Just had to say how much I dislike the format. LOL, I'm still sore. Nice show, guys. Thank you so much, Al, for tuning in. I should have said 2 years learning NASCAR, get rid of the playoffs. Too many hassles. Think of either restructure the playoff or go back to the future. 36 races, maybe next year be better. May have the shallowest rest in the deepest grave. That's what I was thinking.
Thank you, Humperdinck.
With that said, time for the shining moment to close out the show. Starting with you, Tanner. Do you have a shining moment from the weekend?
Man, it's really hard to have one after what we all just witnessed. But obviously, I tip your hat to Denny Hamlin. Nothing to sneeze at. 6 wins in a season. Absolutely dominant pace today. Should have won. But because NASCAR's stupid, you did not. I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of, but his lack of zeal for wanting to get back in the car, I can completely understand it. I hope that, he and his dad get to enjoy that cigar with Michael regardless. I know that Denny's dad is allegedly fallen ill, terminally speaking, and is likely to not make it to the next finale race next season, but that was a championship effort today, and Dennis deserves it, Michael deserves it, and Denny all deserve that bit of relief at the end of a grueling 28 straight week run to finish the season.
It's hard to come up with a shining moment on a night like this. It really is. I mean, Joe, I know you shouted out some strong finishes. I guess any other week we'd probably be talking about a Michael McDowell Spire top 10, but nobody cares.
That
right
happened?
Yeah. 8th place, right, Joe? I don't know if you got the results again. Yeah. Yep. 8th place.
Oh my God, Kyle Busch top 5.
Busch
Oh,
top
that
5.
should have been my shining moment. Sorry, everybody.
There are some great runs up here.
Dude, really? Like, oh my God, Chase Elliott managed to bounce back from that penalty and still got to 10th. That's a pretty impressive run. No one's gonna, look at that. Oh man.
I mean, again, I'll say it's an encore shining moment. You're gonna have to forgive me.
That's fine.
But let the record show there was a 4th race at Phoenix this weekend that was determined by a season-long championship. And again, well done to Trevor Huddleston. It was pretty crappy way to end the season 4 years ago. Again, with a natural season-long championship that came down to the wire, and that's why those moments are special, because you don't get that every year. It looked like his teammate Jake Drew had won the championship. He thought the checkered flag was for him when it was actually for Ty Gibbs. He slowed down. Jesse Love passed him, and by 1 point, Jesse Love, ironically enough, given what happened on Saturday, won that championship instead. And Trevor Huddleston, I think, took a lot of heat for that. And that was the end of his time at Sunrise Ford Racing. He scaled back to part-time in 2022 with his father's team, High Point Racing. They've been full-time since 23. He had a career year. He seems to me like a West Series lifer. I don't know if there's any real path for him to move up at this point in his career, but he gets to celebrate a season-long championship that is thoroughly deserved. All he had to do didn't even have to start the race, I think. He just had to make a couple of practice laps and have an official entry ready to go, and he earned the points bonus for that. ARCA's point system a little bit different than NASCAR's. So he's the season-long champion for the ARCA Menard Series West in 2025. That much is undisputed. Nobody's going to complain about that. Well done, Trevor Huddleston. Worthy of a one shining moment this weekend.
My shining moment, Kyle Busch, that top 5 performance. He had a flat tire early on, and I thought, well, he's out of it. This is part of his lousy season. But he managed to get there. There are just, unfortunately, a lot of good stories. This, format, it just sometimes overshadows everything on the last race. Now, as Ben mentioned, he had an encore shining moment. Tomorrow, Grid Encore will be on the air. So subscribe, hit the bell icon. You'll find a thumbnail. Ring the bell so you don't miss Ben, Brandon, Tanner. They'll be all on the air tomorrow. As Tanner's holding up, that is all, folks. So with that said, just a quick thank you to our Patreon investors. Call the show, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, and Crystal. Crystal's the newest one. If you want your name on the board, get the Patreon link in the video description. So invest in us every month. Check out some of our past track coverage. Ben and I have been to Portland for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. We've been all over the place where we want to continue growing as we plan for 2026. Grid tonight, Wednesday. And sure enough, we'll wrap up everything next race weekend where all the other series run in. For Matthew Bro, who was on there earlier with us, Ben Schneider, Tanner Smith, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time.